Who is Gilgamesh?
I'm a big baby.
Gilgamesh is a punk. More specifically, Gilgamesh is an ancient Mesopotamian legend. I've been reading myths from Mesopotamia. Apparently, Gilgamesh is like one of the oldest stories that we know of. There's like the Bible and Homer and then like a bunch of other kind of disparate mythologies. And mythology runs pretty far back. All cultures have their own mythologies. But I'm reading into Mesopotamian myths, and I intend to look into some like Canaanite myths as well, just as they pertain to biblical discussions and things like that. And I thought I might as well do a quick little video to summarize my thoughts, because it wasn't quite what I expected. I always heard the summary as like one man's epic quest to gain immortality and spite the gods. But that's like just the last section of it. It's not all that long, but if you made it like, I don't know, 2.5 hour movie, that last half hour would just be the quest for immortality. The rest of it's just kind of dicking around. But let's back up a bit. Previously on ancient Mesopotamia, there was a story that parallels Genesis a little bit. This time around, the gods are trying to like work the land, but it's too much work and they don't want to do it all by themselves, so they create mankind to do the work for them so that they can goof off and party. But then humans grow too numerous and we get too rambunctious and rowdy. We get the work done too fast, and so then now all we can do is party, and the gods don't like that. There's one god in particular that's trying to sleep, and humans are making too much noise. So he tells another god to try and figure out how to limit the population size. They send like plagues and famines and stuff like that to try and shut the humans up, and it doesn't work. So then they send a flood. But there's the two gods that disagree with each other. And so the one that's sympathetic for the humans tells a man what's going on and tells him how to like build a boat and load up a bunch of animals and survive the flood. So, alternate Noah. Those two rival gods fight, but they hash it out and they decide not to flood the earth again. Fast forward to Gilgamesh, and now society has been rebuilt. There's been a line of kings, and Gilgamesh is the next in line. He's like a young-ish, legendary chieftain of sorts. As far as I can tell, he just spends his time roaming the land, kicking butt and taking names, and probably molesting women. Gilgamesh is becoming too rambunctious, and the gods don't like it because of the whole previous episode. But rather than destroy him, they create a new man that is supposed to be like the counter to Gilgamesh. And take all of my description with a grain of salt, obviously. I am just reading this for the first time, and it's a lot more broken up than I realized, because the archaeology is working with just tablets, and the tablets aren't perfectly preserved. So there's different tablets that are kind of stuck together, and there's chunks missing. So it's possible that there's like more information out there and like a greater analysis. This is just my general thoughts based on, how it seemed to read to me. So yeah, the gods make Enkidu, and along with my previous note, don't expect me to have the perfect pronunciations of any of the names. And Enkidu is supposed to be, I guess, just the perfect man. He's described as very beautiful,
I don't know if I was actually interpreting that right. I think I was locked on to verses describing him as having luxurious hair and some feminine features. Most depictions show him as a little bit more bestial.
But he's also described as, like, wild, because he just lives in the woods and he speaks with animals. He's like Adam meets, like, a Disney princess. Because of his friendship with animals, all of the farmers' cows and sheep are wanting to leave the farm and go follow this guy up into the woods. And the farmers can't have that. So, they hire a prostitute to go out and seduce him. Apparently, she's the first woman that he's ever seen, because as soon as he sees her, he just drops his pants. Metaphorically speaking. I don't think he's wearing pants at this point. He's a wild man. So again, with the supposed biblical connections, as soon as he has sex for the first time, he kind of becomes aware and feels shame and loses all of his nature powers. He is no longer one with nature. He can no longer speak to the animals. This is, I think, kind of like the god's punishment, because he left the ways of nature and started following the ways of society, right? Because apparently sex isn't natural. So, with post-nut clarity kicking in hard, Enkidu doesn't know what to do, and the prostitute just gives Enkidu some clothes and tells him where the city is, right? He should go speak to Gilgamesh, because Gilgamesh is the local hero that he'll know what to do. Meanwhile, Gilgamesh has been having dreams, I think ever since childhood, that his mother interprets as him finding his equal. That at some point he's going to fight somebody, but that fight is going to fulfill something.
You're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it.
Which maybe is why he's just going around being rambunctious, because he's constantly looking for a fight, because he's constantly trying to find his equal. He's having these dreams that are supposed to be prophetic, that he's gonna find his equal, I think, is what's going on. And so Enkidu finds him, and somehow they fight. I can't remember if that was one of the things that was missing with the different tablets that may or may not have been preserved, but I remember being confused. Like, they just fight, as far as I remember, because that's how the story needs to happen. I'm not going to try too hard to find it. But yeah, once they fight, then they become friends. And maybe more?
Dialogue, that's all it is.
There's certainly online speculation, and while I wouldn't say it's explicit, they're also not beating the allegations either. There's a lot of references. It kind of like I guess like a David and Jonathan thing, where it's like, it talks about how much they love each other quite a bit, except this time it specifically uses phrases such as, like, he loved him like a wife, or more than a wife.
That's why our matching bracelets say Turk and JD.
Further evidence of that may also have to do with a subplot of sorts where there's a, I think, demigod princess that tries to betroth herself to Gilgamesh, and he refuses. Because, you know, bros before hoes. Somewhere along the way, the newfound besties decide to hunt I think, like a magical beast. Sometimes it's referred to as a god, so I don't know if it is one of the gods, but it seems to be sort of like a protector of a particular forest. I don't know why they're hunting it. That is a part that, like, I was very confused with, like, the fragmented translation, that we don't have the complete thing. I was not clear on why they hunt the beast, but I think my headcanon, if I were to, like, translate it or, like, make it a movie or something like that, I would say, like, Gilgamesh hears Enkidu's story about how the gods created him with all these nature powers, but then took away his powers when he had sex, and Gilgamesh doesn't think that's fair, so maybe he's, like, wanting to get revenge on Enkidu's part, or, you know, like, now that they've found each other, they think they're unstoppable and they want to take on the world. I don't know what that has to do with this forest guardian thing. Maybe the goal is just to challenge the gods and they got to start somewhere. I'm not sure. But yeah, they go to this magical forest and start cutting down trees, and then when the forest guardian spirit, whatever it is, whenever that comes out, then they fight it and kill it. And because they do that, now that demigoddess that Gilgamesh spurned, who had been appealing to the gods to try and help them get her revenge, she uses the death of this beast as leverage to finally get the gods on her side, to be like, hey, yeah, something needs to be done here. Gilgamesh is causing too much trouble. So they let her commandeer the divine war bull. I'm picturing her, like, riding this thing into battle. Maybe she just unleashes it. It seems pretty chaotic. Suddenly there's this giant magical bull that's just rampaging through the city, and now Gilgamesh and Enkidu have to fight it and stop it, which they do. They manage to kill the bull, but then Enkidu is struck down. I think it says that, the gods gave him a disease or something, but you could also maybe, again, if you're, adapting it for a movie or something, just have him get injured by the bull, and so then, the bull managed to kill him before Gilgamesh killed the bull, but Gilgamesh does kill the bull, and then he takes Enkidu home and takes care of him for a while. And so seeing Enkidu die is what plants the seed, or rather what lights the fire under Gilgamesh's ass to finally get him to try and go on his quest for immortality. And that is just summarized by kind of just a poem of his wandering. It just kind of skips some time as far as how I read it. Maybe that was another thing that we don't have the full story. I'm not entirely sure, but next thing you know, he's gone on this long journey and he's all weathered and beaten and old. I don't know how much time has passed, but it's enough that people remark of Gilgamesh, you look terrible. Why are you, the mighty warrior, now so road weary and worn out? And Gilgamesh is just well, my friend just died and now I'm trying to gain immortality. What do you expect me to look like? So that's happening. Somewhere along the way, I believe he finds the survivor of the flood. I don't know if it's the same character because it's two different names, right? But I think it's two different names for the same character, or at least the same concept. The story that I referenced that was about the flood, that was Atrahasis. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name that the character in Gilgamesh has. The point is that the survivor of the flood and his wife, since they were kind of blessed by the gods, they were given immortality and kind of put on this special island, I think, is what was going on. Oh. First, Gilgamesh finds, what was her? It was an alewife or something that was on the seashore that told him how to find the flood survivor, but told him that it wasn't going to do any good. And so then, while Gilgamesh is waiting, he comes across a bunch of idols and just destroys them out of anger. And then that's when the flood survivor kind of shows up and is like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Buddy, you're angering the gods more. Why are you doing that? And so they talk, and there's a point where I think maybe he was gonna try and give Gilgamesh an audience with the gods, but it requires Gilgamesh to stay awake for a full week or something, and he can't do it. He keeps falling asleep. So then, out of desperation and lack of options, he tells Gilgamesh that there's a special plant, perhaps a fruit. I forget how it was described. I probably won't be able to find it again. I might need to read this again. I opened a page and there's a scorpion man. Why did I skip a page? Why is there a scorpion man? Who's the scorpion man? But yeah, I remembered him. I thought he had to like swim to the bottom of the ocean or something and get a magical fruit or a magical flower or something. It's been like a week or so since I finished. I was reading it fairly slowly. Here we go. A plant whose root you can win yourself the plant. He tied heavy stones to his feet and they dragged him down. He saw the plant. He took the plant. He cut the heavy stones from his feet and the sea threw him up to the shore. So yeah, plant at the bottom of the sea. It's a root. I forgot what part of the plant. I was picturing either a flower or a fruit. Anyway, this root, I think it was supposed to offer him some kind of immortality or maybe just make him young again or something. If you can win yourself the plant, you will find rejuvenation. I don't think it's full immortality, but it's like the best thing that's like attainable right now for Gilgamesh. But yeah, he finds this plant and he's happy and he's excited and he's on his way home because his quest is done. And then he like stops to rest and a snake sneaks up and steals the plant and makes off with it. So again, with the kind of biblical comparisons, you have a special plant that's supposed to grant immortality, but then a snake comes along and ruins it. But it appears to be just a snake, not a magical snake. Although some would say that the serpent in the garden is just snake. But I digress. This is when Gilgamesh hits rock bottom, and he returns home in defeat, feeling utterly crushed that he's not only gained immortality, but kind of wasted his life on the pursuit of immortality. At which time, he receives a vision or a dream or something from his dead friend, Enkidu. And Enkidu tells him, basically, like, hey, dude, maybe instead of fearing death and chasing immortality and fighting the gods, you should instead accept your fate, make peace with the gods, and just live a good life so that when you do die, you'll be accepted in the afterlife and you don't have to fear death. Which is surprisingly biblical in a way. When I say it's biblical, I'm referring to the idea of not chasing your own glory, but making peace with God instead. Obviously, there's a very different theological construct here, but some people might object to the idea that just live a good life is a biblical message. The closest parallel that Gilgamesh has to the Bible is Ecclesiastes, and that is basically the point of Ecclesiastes. You can't have it all, so just live your life. That's what I meant by that. I think I spotted it already, but then I was looking at the footnotes and everything, and the translator even says, like, compare this to Ecclesiastes with, like, the message that chasing after things, chasing after your own glory is fruitless. You should just kind of accept your lot in life and do whatever work God has given you. Just go home, enjoy your work, enjoy your wife, live your life, and eat, drink, and be merry. So yeah, that's my quick-ish review of the Epic of Gilgamesh.
What did you think of the story? Ah.